Hey, how's it going? This video is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to do a little guide video for some new players to starrail. With Penacony coming out, I've noticed quite a few people have started playing. I thought this would just be a great time to just drop a helpful video. I didn't want to make this too complex or too in detail, just because that kind of is a put off for anyone who's more casual. But yeah, let's get into it. Okay, starting off, you just want to focus on leveling up. A little bit of a boring tip or advice thing, but it's just what's most helpful. You'll get 2 events, Star-Kissed Synchrony and Trailblazing Will. Just focus on those, get those done. I'd say you don't need to worry about anything else until you hit Trailblaze level 20, because that's when you go up an equilibrium level. Equilibrium levels are kind of like limits for your account, so they limit all the mobs that you go up against in the overworld. They limit what level you can level up your characters to, what level you can level up your light cones to, and also they increase the rewards you get from killing mobs. You can talk to Pom to just look at what levels each equilibrium is at. Anytime you can increase your equilibrium level, you'll get a mission that will just pop up. It'll look something like this. And lastly, let's talk about operation briefing and strategic training. With strategic training, it'll just go through some basics. This will just be some basic mechanics in the game, and you'll get some rewards for doing that. And with operation briefing, you can treat it as a checklist. These will be things that you will do eventually anyway, and you just get bonus rewards for that. Now let's talk about building characters and what to farm. I would say to focus on leveling only a couple of characters. I think 5 or 6 is a sweet spot. You won't need 8 because you won't be dealing with any endgame content just yet. If you find yourself with a lot of leftover Trailblaze power, farm golden calyxes, but otherwise don't farm like crazy, as you'll get more rewards at higher difficulties. Farm crimson ones at the bare minimum, I would say, just what you need. Okay, just want to quickly mention what traces are. So if you go into your character settings and you look at this part here, we'll say traces. These are basically like abilities and extra stats that you can get. These little side things are extra stats you can get, and these will be your main skills. Every character has different things you need to level up, and different things you should prioritize. So this is March, you would need to prioritize defense, for example, right? And it's always recommended to go for these little nodes that are like extras, as it says there, bonus ability. Different things that you can just unlock that make the character that much better. Just forgot to mention that each character will have different priorities. Some characters might need you to focus on their skill more, some might need you their ultimate. It depends on what the character is. I would recommend just looking up a guide on the specific character. Okay, post-edit abyss here. I yapped so much on this part, so feel free to skip to whatever. I also don't really know how to cut it down anymore, but yeah, anyway, I'll leave it to past me. I'm going to preface this section with build whoever you want. They can all be good, you just might need more investment depending on who you pick. This is just my opinion, this is just who I found easier or who I preferred, and I think will be easier for you guys as well. I will be ignoring any of the limited 5 stars. I'll talk about the standard one since you're guaranteed at least one from that starting first banner. We'll start with Destruction. The first of the bunch is Clara. Clara's a pretty good 5-star, you don't need crazy crit damage or anything to be good, and she doesn't need speed boots either, so she's easy enough to build and quite reliable for damage, not to mention she has some good survivability as well. Next we have the Physical Trailblazers. Another 5-star physical damage dealer. I'd say it's worth building them, obviously because they'll have more parts and elements in the future as well, but they do have some good physical damage if you don't have Clara, and you can save some resources if you don't feel like building Su Shang. Up next is Arlen. Now, Arlen's quite weak. I really don't think he's worth investing in at all, especially having Serval. He just doesn't keep up. He needs a lot of investment to be as good. Also, eating into his own HP I don't think is that helpful for early game. It just puts you in a more uncomfortable position in some battles. Okay, Hook is up next. She's an average fire DPS, nothing remarkable. She can do decent fire damage, but I don't really think it's necessary to build her. If you have someone like Himeko or something like that, I'd definitely say build them over her. Even though I think there are some cases where Hook can do more damage in terms of like single target, for example, I just don't think it's worth it if you have a different option. Now we've got Zhui. She's a good quantum DPS. She scales with break effect, which is kind of nice, so it's easy enough to get a decent set for her, like the break effect set that you get from most things early on. In terms of damage, I don't think she can outperform Qingzhui, but her unique ability to toughness break regardless of what element weakness there is very comfortable to have. Last of the destruction bunch is Misha. Misha is a decent ice DPS. He's okay to build. I think it's hard to justify since we get Herta for EU4 for free, but he does have cases, especially in like 3 target scenarios where he does more damage than Herta. But I don't think it's enough damage to say don't build Herta, build him instead. Just go with Herta in my opinion, it's better off. Next path we're talking about is Hunt. The Hunt path focuses on single target, so it's already kind of at a disadvantage with how the game is right now. But nonetheless, let's talk about some characters. Okay, first off in the Hunt bunch is Yanqing. Now I'll keep it real with you guys, just don't build him. He needs to be not hit at all in terms to have uptime for his talent, so he does more damage. And if you're up against any AoE enemy, yeah, there goes that. I don't really think it's worth building him. He's just too tough to use, especially for an early on player. I just don't think he does enough damage, and he just needs that uptime, so it's hard to play him. Not impossible, obviously. It's just not something I'd recommend as an early player. And even in the late game, it's like, he's not that good. Next up is Dr. Ratio. At E0, I think he is the best imaginary damage dealer. If you have a well-built Inhibitor Lune, then I don't think you need to build Dr. Ratio. But excluding that, I think you should 100% build him. Okay, Danheng is next. And I don't really think he's that great. He can do some good damage, but I just don't think it's really worth building him. I would personally prefer just to use Sampo as a single target damage dealer compared to Danheng. Just because you don't have to build crit as much, and he will still do some decent damage. Danheng on the other hand, you will need some crit, and I think it's just not super efficient to build him. I don't really think I can justify getting him past level 60 or level 70. Okay, Sushang's up next. Another one that is a little bit tough to recommend. While she can do some good damage, building crit is a little bit more difficult than building like attack and break effect, which is where Luca I think does a better job. He can do more damage with only scaling off of that. So yeah, I think maybe get her up to like level 60 and see if you want to carry on with her. Starting off the Erudition path, we have Himiko. Himiko is one of my favorite characters, but in terms of DPS, I think she only comes onto decent as a fire DPS. She'll be more than enough for your early and mid game, and in the end game, I think she only gets some usage in Pure Fiction, but that'll be more than enough. Even objectively speaking, I just don't think you'll regret building her. Herta's up next. You can get her E4 for free. She's very easy to access, and she can deal damage pretty frequently with her follow-ups. She has good AoE as well, and I think she is definitely worth building. She is useful in Pure Fiction as well. Next up is Serval. Very good lightning damage dealer. She does really good AoE, and she can ult frequently since she has a low energy ultimate. If you have any intention on going for Jingyuan, Kafka, or Acheron, who's coming up next patch, then I would say don't build her. Otherwise, I think she's definitely worth building. Qingchui or QQ. QQ is a very unique damage dealer. She's very RNG, so when you have a normal DPS, main focus is trying to get those crits. However, that's where she's different, because it's not just that, you need to make sure you use your skill enough times, and you have to be careful with how you use your ult more. She does have a very high upper limit in terms of damage, but I'd say it's locked behind her E4, and just in terms of early game, I really don't think she's that useful. You'll be much more comfortable using a different damage dealer that's more consistent. Up next we have the Path of Harmony. These are your buffers, a crucial part to almost every team. First up we have Bronya. Bronya is a absolute must build. If you have her, 100% you should build her. If you don't have her, when you get your 300 pull guarantee for your standard banner, I think you should go for her. She is really good. She gives extra DPS for any damage dealers you have. She'll boost their damage and crit damage, and she basically gives them another turn. So I can't see a reason not to build her if you have her. Asta's up next. She is the first Harmony character I believe you get. You get her in the forced one pull that happens at the start of the game. She is an okay character. I can't really justify getting her past level 60. I think she only does a good job in the early game. With all the other options in Harmony we have now, I don't really think she just pulls her weight. Okay, Tigion's up next, and this is another must build character in my opinion. She is probably second best in terms of the Harmony characters. Being able to give ult energy and just adding that extra DPS to your characters, it's just too good to skip out on. She fits into almost any team comp as well. Just a must build. Please build her. She will help you out so much. For Wukong, I do not think she's worth building. A nice part about her kit is that she doesn't need any specific stats for her buffs to scale off of, but she does require speed tuning, so it's quite uncomfortable to use her if you don't have her E6. So overall I don't think she's that useful in the early game. And lastly in Harmony we have Hanya. I would say to completely skip building her. Unfortunately her buffs don't really do too well. whether it's early game or end game. She can provide extra skill points, but that's about it. You don't really need her and you can get by with just good skill point management. Our second to last path is the Nihility path. This path is mostly your debuffers and your damage over time characters. First up in Nihility is Welt. He has the ability to slow down enemies with his ult and his skill, but in terms of damage, I don't think that he is worth building, especially considering ratio is free and he really does outclass Welt. Pella's up next, and I would say she's a must build. She's very easy to get ult uptime and she just needs a decent effect hit rate. She can lower defensive enemies and strip their buffs that they have, so I think she's definitely a must build. She can slot into quite a few different team comps and she'll do a good job there. Now, I briefly talked about Zampa when I was talking about Dan Heng. I do think he does have some good single target damage dealing and he has some good toughness breaking ability. But if you do plan on getting Black Swan, she just straight up replaces him. If you don't plan on getting Black Swan, he does do a good job in terms of dot damage and he can do some pretty strong break damage. Okay, next up is Luca. Luca is a pretty good single target damage dealer and a dot character. He's very easy to build in terms of what you need. I think all you really need is break effect and speed. You don't need as much as I have on him. I think he does fine with a bit less. He isn't limited to just dot in my opinion. I think he can actually do well as a physical DPS just on his own. And he doesn't really need to have a lot of crit or anything like that. If you just stack up a load of break effect on him, he'll do some good damage. Ending off Nihility, we have Gunaifen. She's decent with her talent causing enemies to take more damage, but I think start and mid game, she's not too helpful to build. Preservation's up next, and we're starting off with the Trailblazer. Fire Trailblazer is a bit of a different one. She only provides a very small shield, however she does have the ability to completely taunt any enemy, but this relies on her using her skill every time. Again, I do think it's worth building the Trailblazer anyway, so just do that. Next up is Japard. He is pretty good. He has a really big shield that can go across the whole team. He has an inbuilt taunt mechanic, and he also has the ability to freeze on his skill. The only downside to his taunt is that your other characters aren't going to get as much energy because he is going to take the hits instead. Moving on to March, she has the ability to have an AoE freeze with her ult. She can give one of your characters a shield, which also will taunt the enemy so they get attacked more and get more energy. And whenever that shield is hit, she can follow up. I think overall she does a good job at sustaining and she can be useful in some in-game modes as well. Next up we have Abundance, the healers. Bailu has good healing capability and she also lets your team take less damage. The only downside to her is that she has no cleanse and her healing with her skill can be a little bit RNG since it bounces between your characters. Natasha's up next. She's the first free healer you get. Things to note is that she does have a cleanse on her skill when you unlock the trace. However, her healing does pale in comparison to Bailu, but for the early game she'll be more than enough. And last but not least we have Lynx. I would say roughly her healing is the same as Natasha. However, instead of having the cleanse on her skill, she has it on her ult. And it is team wide. Nat and Lynx are probably going to be your two main healers for especially the early games, so I would say it's fine to build them. Moving on to Relics. Relics are what you get from Caverns of Corrosions, as they're called, and you'll be spending a lot of time here after Trailblaze level 65. Now, since the start of the game, there's been quite a few caverns added, and as the game progresses there'll only be more. But these aren't the priority for the early game. As you open chests around the map, you're going to get two main sets that you'll be using for the most part. But there are a couple of other sets that you do get from Operation Briefing and I think from Pom Pom. I don't think it's possible to completely ignore farming any caverns from early game, so here are the two ones that I recommend if you really need a couple of relics. Elixir Seekers is one of the best in the game right now. The HP and the speed set are very useful across pretty much any character that's a support. But if you don't have that one unlocked, you can farm Providence for a bit just to get a couple of pieces. The Quantum set can be used for any Quantum character and in some cases any DPS. If you do somehow get a 4-piece. Weathering Snow will be useful for just any character, just so they have a bit more tankiness. The one cavern you shouldn't touch at all is this one. The Musketeer set you get from the chests, and the healing set isn't that useful in the long run. The pieces you get from the Operation Briefing will be enough. My last 2 points are to not farm like crazy before TL 65, and don't level up trash relics to 15, please. Doing those two things is such a waste of time and effort, just don't. Anyway, moving on to Simulate Universe. This is where you get all your planet ornaments and some extra stuff. I can't remember what level exactly you unlock this, but there'll be a quest for it and you'll have to talk to Herta, so just wait until that. As you level up more and increase your equilibrium level, you'll unlock more and more worlds at higher difficulties. This is where you earn planet ornaments. which are similar to Relics, but they only come in 2-piece sets. You will get extra drops from doing this, so try not to skimp out where you can, and at least do your couple of runs a week. And I think the score will be lower for you, the total score. As you increase your equilibrium level, it goes up until I think this is the maximum at 14,000, and you get all of these kinds of rewards. You'll get different scores for completing different worlds at different difficulty levels. The minimum you should do is 3. I think that will max out any score that you have. And then once you get to TL 65, I think you'll need to do 2 max difficulty runs to get it. But yeah, try and get that so you can get these rewards. These are what you will use to unlock those light cones from the Herta store. I'll go over these in a second. And these are used to upgrade those light cones. Also, when you're doing Simulated Universe, try and do like different events and pick different options each time. There are definitely better occurrences that give you different items or blessings, but you should try and get all of them because you do get a reward every time you get something new. You'll get like, I think 30 jades per new thing. So yeah, 30 jades per new curio, and I think it's like 20 for every different occurrence that you get. So where you can, just try and do some Simulated Universe. You'll get some extra jades and that'll just be some extra pulls for you. Alright, quick speedrun of just what is worth farming and what isn't. World 3 is pretty good. Both sets have their usage. This can be used on some damage dealers, this can be used on some supports. We'll start with World 4. World 4 only has one set that's useful. This is Sprightly Von Whack, good for any support pretty much. The action advance and the energy regen is useful. Other set is just not worth it. World 5, I don't really see any value in farming this. I would say just do each difficulty once just to get these basic rewards. The effective rate can be good on a couple of characters, but it's just not worth it. World 6, I would say only one really good set. This one has its uses on a lot of characters. Any character that does follow up or relies on that ult for most of the damage, this one's great. Bellerbox set is decent enough for some defensive characters. Your preservation characters will be able to make some use of that. World 7, this is probably the best one. Both sets are really useful. Useful for almost any damage dealer other than your dot ones, and broken kill is just useful for any support. Easy to throw onto anyone and it's always going to be useful. And lastly, this is the newest one, World 8. Both sets have their uses. I still don't think it's as good as World 7. This one's great for any of your dot characters and a couple of damage dealers. I think crit rate and crit damage buffs are a bit better though for your crit DPS. The Penacony set's pretty useful, increasing the damage of allies of the same type, so if you put this on a spot they can benefit from it, but overall just not really worth it. I would prefer Von Whack over this. Okay, let's quickly talk about some light cones. I'm just going to ignore any gacha 5-star ones in this, since most people aren't going to really be pulling for them. First off with Destruction, we'll start with the 3 stars. Collapsing Sky is probably the only one that you can make some usage of in the early game. The rest you should just ignore. And then for 4 stars, A Secret Vow is probably the best one. Moles Welcome You and Under the Blue Sky are okay. And lastly, for 5 stars, a free-to-play one that you can get from the Herta store is On the Fall of an Aeon. This one's pretty good for most Destruction characters. You can throw that on them and they'll do well. Now, on to Hunt. For 3 stars, Darting Arrow, but as soon as you can, move on from it. Subscribe for more. Swordplay and Oni Science Remains are probably the best options in here. Subscribe for more being my favorite of the 3. Swordplay and Oni Science Remains can be good for battles where there's only like 1 or 2 enemies. And for the free-to-play 5-star, Cruising in the Stellar Sea is a good one you can get from Herta's store. It gives you crit rate. It's a really good light cone. You can S5 it eventually as well. Next we have Erudition. For the 3 stars, Databank or Passkey are fine. I would move on from them as soon as possible. And for 4 stars, Birth of Self is okay with the couple of follow-up damage dealers that we have in Erudition. Otherwise, Seriousness of Breakfast is the best overall for the 4 stars. You can get that from the Forgotten Hall as well, so snag that when you can. Let's move on to Harmony. For 3 stars, Meshing Cogs is really good. It's kind of crazy how it's a 3-star even though it's so useful. And it's easy to S5 as well. Now for the 4 stars, Memories of the Past is pretty good. It's like a better Meshing Cogs. Dance 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 is amazing. Past and Future can work pretty decently if your support is just before your DPS. Dreamville Adventure is okay. It can be a little bit finicky, but it's fine. Now for Nihility, the 3 stars kind of suck, but almost all the 4 stars are good. Hidden Shadow is probably the only 3-star you can really use decently. If you played the earlier event from like 1.1 or something, you could get tutorial mission starts as a light cone. That one's really good. If you don't have it though, you can pretty much use any of the other ones. Goodnight Sleep Well, Resolution Shines, they're both really good. Eyes of Prey and Fermata are decent as well. And It's Showtime's a new one that's also pretty decent. And for the 5 stars in Nihility, Solitary Healing can be pretty decent. It can go on any of your dot damage dealers, and they'll be able to make good use of it. Onto preservation. For the 3 stars, all are fine to be honest. I would personally go with amber or defense for the start of the game. For the 4 stars, day 1 of my new life is pretty good, and Landau's choice is also great. Those are my 2 recommendations. As for the rest of them, I don't really recommend them too much. Lastly, we have abundance. For the 3 stars, I think multiplication is probably best. You can make use of cornucopia as well. And then for the 4 stars, I think all of them are really fine other than what is real. I personally like perfect timing and post-op conversation. Hey over here is also a really good one that you can get for S5 through the Ho-Ho event, and quid pro quo you can get S5 through the Forgotten Hall. Okay, so we're at the end of the video and I just want to put in some final tips and tricks. My first one is the daily check-in. You can do this online. Just type in daily check-in honkaistarrail, as you can see up there, and it will take you straight to the thing. First link, you can go on the website, sign in, it's safe, and you'll get an extra reward. This resets daily, so make sure to check in every day. It takes about 2 seconds. Next tip, add friends. There's a tab that will let you add anyone that's a stranger you don't have added, and you can use their characters. It makes auto farming hella easy, and they get credits from it, so there's no reason why they're not going to add you back. My next tip is to talk to PomPom. Talking to PomPom 3 times a day, you can get, I think it's 8,000 credits, so that's 24k a day. There is some time in between each time that you talk to PomPom. You can't do it just back to back instantly, but this will really accumulate. So if you're doing it daily, even if it's just once a day, that's an extra 8,000 daily, so why not? And it takes like a minute at most. Every month, first day of the month, they'll be in stock. You can get 5 special passes, 5 regular passes, and 2 tracks of destiny. So be sure to get all of those first. This will obviously be around 1,000, I think it's 1,020 of your Undying Embers, so be sure to try and keep that much at least. As you do more pulls, you'll increase more of the currency that you have of this. I'm just going to talk about this really quickly. I wouldn't touch on these in case you accidentally buy the wrong one. Do not spend any jades on the regular starrail pass. You will get those from just leveling up your characters, doing Simulated Universe, and a couple of other ways. Starrail special pass, way to go, almost always. Anything you can get on the standard pass, you can get on the limited passes. My final bit of advice is just do your dailies. They take like, not 10 seconds, but like 10 minutes max. I've got multiple accounts and I can do it all in about 10-15 minutes. And I don't even have to be in the room. I'm literally, whilst editing this, I'm literally using my stamina, my Trailblaze power just to farm. So it's easily doable. And you don't need to worry about being burnt out. If that's all you do in a day, then that's fine. You get most of your dailies for using a support character, using 120 power, you know, logging in. That's enough for 500. So it doesn't take too much effort, and you'll be done with it before you know it. Okay, so that ends off this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it and found it helpful. If you have any tips, please leave a comment. I would love to see them. Maybe I missed something. I don't think so, but I probably did. And I just want to quickly mention, I did watch a couple of other guides just to see if there was anything I disagreed with, and I've changed that in my video. Shout out to Mr. Pokey and Mtashed and Catch-A-Smack. Those are the 3 that I really remember watching, and they go a lot of in-depth into some other stuff. This is also my first time doing one of these videos, so I do apologize if it's a little bit awkward or weird. This is just how I am. But yeah, catch you guys in the next video. Bye.